Hello and welcome to Filmi Ladies. We are celebrating our second anniversary. Can you believe?
Woohoo!
We know we
We
just
are
did 100.
toddlers.
We and we act like it too. We know we just did our 100 episodes, but that means also it's been 100 and a few weeks. So here we are at our second anniversary. And if you didn't see the thumbnail, I bet you can still guess who we're going to cover. It's time for Dev Anand.
Yay! It's our
Our
patron
our
saint.
patron saint, our sort of inadvertent patron saint here now, most advertently. That's not a word I ever use. I only say inadvertently. Here he is very deliberately being the full subject of a whole episode all on his own because he has at least two movies that have some version of the word two in their title. So we are
Yes.
talking about Hum Dono because I feel like that's one of the Dev most evergreen, most beloved films, right?
Yes.
And then we are talking about Nau Do Gyarah, which is I had never seen and I loved it.
I had never seen it either.
Which one do you want to start with? I kind of want to start with Hum Dono because it's
Sure.
the more expected.
Hum Dono also has do devs.
Has
So
Do Devs.
technically, even though there's two Dev Anand movies that we're talking about, there's
Yeah,
three devs
three.
we're talking about, really.
All right. Here's the first thing I want to say about Hum Dono. If you don't know the plot, it's again a movie where a guy goes off to war and then comes back and is mistaken for somebody else. So it's a lot like Hasina Manjayegi that we talked about with Shashi and Babita, but more serious, I think. He goes to war. He is in love with a very baby Sadhana, who is cute as can be. He has a very sad and loving ma. He goes off to war. He meets his duplicate in the war, who is a commanding officer. They do some daring war type things, and commanding officer is thought to be dead. Dev
Mhm.
goes to tell his wife Nanda and his mother Lalita Pawar the news. That is not allowed to happen. The doctor says Nanda has heart issues, so she can't handle a shock. So you have to pretend to be her husband. He's like, so he
Mm.
does, and then
Very filmy
poor,
medical advice.
very filmy
Love
medical
it.
advice. Poor Sadhana is like, what's going on, man? Meanwhile, his actual mother has died, which makes his, kind of wanting to do well by Lolita Pawar even more meaningful. And then, end. But what I want to say about this film mostly is that the second Dev, where he plays the very Anglo-y
Hmm.
um,
With the
major,
mooch.
he has the mustache, his hair is brushed down over his forehead, and he uses one of the more ridiculous accents I think I've ever heard. And all I could think of was, I say, chaps,
I
from
knew you were
Fudgy.
going to say that. I say, chaps.
Same guy, same
Jolly good.
guy. Jolly good. It's a lot. This movie's very filmy, very
Yes.
enjoyable. It has that ultra catchy do 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 do
Oh,
do
it's so
do do
lovely. I
do
love
do do.
that.
Yeah,
Uh,
little tune that his
I don't
magical
smoke,
musical
but I want
I
I want a little
know.
Zippo
A
lighter with
musical
that music.
lighter. Yeah. Which is a nice twist on a musical watch or clock, I have to say. I don't think I've seen a musical lighter anywhere else. Um,
Hmm.
one of the things I like about this movie is that I at least have not seen very many Indian films that deal with World War II.
Mm.
So that is kind of newish to me. Um, not a whole lot of meaning is really done with it. Like it could have been any disrupting event where
Yeah.
things are chaotic, I think. But the risk obviously is something that the mothers are worried about, especially, but
Hmm.
but the wives or partners too. Um, those kind of it was a little more action sequences than I care for, but it's fine. And then there's all this stuff of like an image of soldier dev like superimposed over images of training and fighting
Yeah.
and stuff. Really, it really is fudgy. I don't know what speaks to you
Fudgy with
about,
a better print.
yeah, what speaks to you about this movie, and what does it say to you about Dev Anand, or like what is the devness of this movie to you?
So I remember WhatsApping you and saying I was so excited to rewatch Hum Dono
Mm.
because I said I love this movie and I've never seen Nau
Mm.
Do Gyarah, but I'm excited to see that also. And I still enjoyed Hum Dono a lot, but maybe because I was watching it after such a long time, like it's not really a movie I revisit or
No,
anything, right?
no.
I was actually taken aback by how terrible Dave was.
Terrible in what way?
Literally every other person in this movie has outacted him. So The women are
Yeah.
phenomenal. I loved Sadhna
Oh
as
my God,
this.
me too.
She was so baby faced, but she had such gravitas, I would say. Like she's naive, but she also has gravitas. She was so pretty. She was so picture perfect. Her role is, of course, a little bit of like a person who is sacrificing herself, but thankfully was not like too weepy or anything. She
But
just
she
came across
didn't,
more
and
as,
she didn't want to. It wasn't like I choose to do this because this
yeah,
woman who is married is owed more in life than I am
yeah.
because I'm unmarried. It just sort of happens,
It
and
felt
she does kind of fight it.
organic. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it felt like this is just a really decent human being. Like even
Yeah.
when she takes care of Dave's mom, played by
Yeah.
Leela Chitness, she's not doing it out of the sense of like, well, I'm your
No,
baby bahu. She's just doing it because she's
I
sad for this.
know.
Like, so I loved Sadhana in it. She was amazing.
Yeah,
I
same.
loved Nanda. I always have a soft spot for Nanda, and Nanda is
Hmm.
the very fragile, good-hearted, sweet person who's knitting and who has a heart issue and who her husband, the mustachio Dave, really loves. I just thought that their chemistry was so sweet. And I had a soft spot for Nanda's character because she was like fragile enough and made me worry about her without being weepy. And then
That's true.
I loved the moms. I loved Leela Chitness. I
Yeah.
love the scene where she is so angry with her son and she's so angry with Sadhna and she lashes out at her and she comes out with her hair all loose and she's like screaming at her and she's like, leave my house. And then when she hears
Yeah.
Sadhna crying, she feels bad for her and then she brings her and she's like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, whatever. So that
Yeah.
really broke my heart. And then I loved Lalita Pawar. I don't know what it is about Lalita Pawar. I just love her.
She's great.
She
She's fierce. She's amazing.
she's so fierce and
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And that scene really broke my heart where Nanda won't read the letter and Lalita Pawar cannot, either she can't read English or she just can't read. And she's
Yeah.
just scampering up and down the
Oh.
stairs and she goes out into the street and she asks a passerby to read the letter that the army has sent because she's so terrified her son is dead. I just thought she killed it. And
Hmm.
apart from the four women being phenomenal, I was like, who is this man who plays Sadhna's dad? His monologue was so riveting. I kept staring at him, and he
He
was
was
kind of like, you
good.
have no money. He was this like capitalist uncle. And I Googled
Yeah.
his name, and his name is Gajanan Jagirdar. And he's like apparently like a big time Marathi film actor from really back in the days. And
Yeah.
I was like, well, no wonder he's this like very celebrated actor because he was phenomenal. Meanwhile, Dave, our patron saint Dave, was the weakest link.
And
His acting
exaggerated by
was
the fact that
not,
there's two of him.
yeah, his
Yeah.
acting was not up to par at all. I thought he basically just kind of like very lackadaisically, just kind of like, walk through the film, kind of sleepwalk through the film. He's adorable in the songs, I have to say, like in Abhina Jao Chodkar. I mean, the man is photogenic.
I mean, that's songs and the
Yeah.
so one thing fascinating about this film that I didn't remember is
Mm.
there's no dialogue for what 10 minutes or something because
Mm-hmm.
it opens in verbal silence. He's sitting by a pond. She Sadhna appears and you see her
Appears.
reflection in the pond and then it's quiet and then they have this song. So there's no spoken
Mm-hmm.
for effort, which is such a cool moody kind of
Yeah.
unsettling thing. Even though the song is lovely, it's still kind of unsettling and I really
Yeah.
liked that. It's
It had a very like woodlandy, woodland
yeah,
rim kind of a vibe.
peaceful,
Yeah, with the pond and the ripples and everything. Very artistic, I have to
very
say.
artistic. Yeah, very charming.
Yeah, but Dave was the weakest link for me. He was very handsome, he was very charming. I loved his chemistry with both the women, with Nanda
Hmm.
as well as Sadhna. I loved his chemistry with both the Maas, with Leela Chitnis
Hmm.
as well as with Lalita Pawar. But his acting just wasn't it, man. And I was like, this is supposed to be one of his most celebrated films, but he is really not that good in it. What did you think of his acting?
Not my favorite. Um, but it didn't bother me. I don't think I was distracted by it or anything. it's more restrained and all than he is in the later films. So maybe I'm grading on a serious curve here.
Right?
I did ask Twitter, what are your favorite black and white Dev Anand movies? And this did not come up, interestingly,
Oh,
because my impression is that this is one of the big ones for not just for Navketan, but for him as an
yeah.
actor. And I would agree that like what you're saying about how the film is put together and everything, like it's lovely, like so
Hmm.
amazing directing and cinematography and all that. But
I love the writing
yeah,
too.
yeah, the writing is good, except I would say the war part probably goes on a little too
It
long
did,
for
yeah.
me, but you do have to establish a relationship between these two men and why
Mhm.
um soldier Dev, who does get promoted to
Hmm.
major, or is he captain and then he becomes a major or whatever. So he's on equal rank by the time the war is
Yeah.
over, which is interesting. Why he would have. So, okay, subtitle issue. What does he actually agree to do for the major before all the combat happens and the major is like left,
I
we
think he
assume, dead?
agrees that if something happens to the major by which one presumes death or capture or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, then
Mm-hmm.
he would at least go back and let his mom know or his wife know what happened to him.
So he
Like,
does
don't,
not agree to like marry his
oh, no, no,
widow
no.
or anything like that.
No, I
Okay.
don't think so. I think it's
Yeah.
just kind of like, it takes time for word to get back to
Yeah.
your folks and they're
Yeah.
waiting and they're
Yeah.
stressed out and just,
Yeah.
just be my
Okay.
personal messenger sort of a thing
Yeah.
as my younger brother because they think of each other as like an older and a younger brother. Like that's how close their bond is, which seems like a very
Yeah.
reasonable thing to do.
If you were to rank Hindi movies that deal with guilt, I feel
Yeah.
like this would be high on the list. It's handled fairly succinctly, but he shows up at Major Dev's house and he's found out his own mother has died.
Hmm.
And Sadhna, by the way, he signs up for the army and leaves for the war without telling Sadhna that he's going. So she's like,
Or even his mom.
yeah, like, no, he tells his mom because she's like, she does that whole speech about how can you go to war and all these mothers wait for their sons. And
Oh, yeah.
he tells her,
Okay.
but he hasn't written, I don't,
Right.
or maybe he writes very minimally. So, and he's just lost his own mother. And
Hmm.
then he shows up at this house and a mother answers the door and embraces him without him getting a word out, basically.
Hmm.
And this definitely falls into if you would just say the thing, none of this would happen, which is it feels very contrived, but also there was an emotional reality to it or an emotional heft
Right.
to it that did work for me. Like if his own mother hadn't died and he was
Hmm.
confronted by this mother, I think he
Right.
would have said, I'm a lookalike. Believe
Yeah.
it or not, I'm a lookalike and da 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 da. But so
I think he would have still had a relationship with the other mother
yeah,
with light
maybe.
cover, but it would have been
Mm-hmm.
more like your son was like an older brother to me.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, he's passed away, but don't think you don't
yeah,
have a child anymore. I will be your child. And
right.
he kind of would have,
And I
but
need
I
a
don't think he
mom,
would
so
have stepped into those shoes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's heavily contrived in a way that I found distracting some of the time, but then very effective at others. So like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I think my major problem with this movie is the kind of the handling of how his re-entry or his entry into that family um
Hmm.
happens. But I don't know. It's so
And
filmy and
I would actually say that that's the actor's fault
he
because
doesn't help, certainly.
right. Like, I think I can't help but feel that if that role was done by a better actor, I think they could have somehow made it seem more believable. Like, in so much of the movie, this guy is just blank faced. Like, he's just lying around and like things are happening, and he's just like,
Mm.
just sort of so passive, right? So, if he had developed that character a little bit more, I feel like that whole thing of like, you know, I'm not going to tell this woman that I'm not actually her son. I think that would have
Yeah.
worked better. I feel like that's not so much a writing and direction issue, and it really is a Dave issue.
Yeah.
But also, I was
Uh,
happy to see that the conflict that they portray is actually the Burma War. So it's World War II, but the
yeah.
Indian troops are fighting. They've been shipped off to Burma because that is where my grandfather fought. So my grandfather fought on the Burma front, and he was shot by
Mm,
a Japanese soldier. So I couldn't help but imagine my grandpa hanging out with the two Devs and being like, "Oh, hello." I don't think my grandfather would have said "I say chaps" or "jolly good," but he could have been hanging out with them. So that gave me a little bit of giddy delight, let's
yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah. Oof. This is also, I think if I hadn't just rewatched Hasina Manjayagi with the two
Mm.
Shashis, that this would have been a little different. I was reminded, I mean, when we talked about that film, you talked about the American film Summersby about the Civil War returned person. And I was reminded that that's based on an actual French law case.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, a peasant who returned from a war. So and it's been adapted for film and stage and other things quite a few
Mm.
times apparently. So it definitely um, is a story we've that's out there. But it
Yeah.
does raise interesting questions about, what are different types of love and what does it mean to be a son or be a mother or be a partner or things like that. And I shockingly to me, I actually liked the song where Nanda and Lalita Pawar have gone to a temple and it's all these
Mm.
women, but also some men sitting behind them are singing about if I got the subtitles right, like gods, why do you not hear the cries of women
Mm.
during war? And
Yeah.
like we're daughters, we're mothers, we're
Hmm.
wives, waiting, waiting, waiting.
Yeah.
Why do you not attend to our suffering in the war? And I found that pretty moving, honestly.
Yeah. It's so sad. Yeah. I remember Anushka Sharma talking once in an interview of hers on NDTV a few years ago, because she's an army brat. And she talked about when her dad was shipped off to the Kargil War, they couldn't get any news of fatalities, like, fast enough.
Yeah.
And apparently on TV, they have like a little ticker tape at the bottom where in real time, as they got information, they would type the names of Indian soldiers
Mm,
who were presumed dead or who were dead.
mm,
And Anushka Sharma talked about how her mom would literally sit glued to the television and would
yeah.
not budge because she kept looking for her husband's name in there. And
Oh,
Anushka Sharma talked about how harrowing that was for
mm,
her.
mm,
Um, and I mean, being someone who comes from a military family, I know how much it's not just the men who go to war suffer,
yeah,
but it's also the women. Like my
absolutely.
grandfather won medal upon medal upon medal for valor and honor in World War II. But after that, he suffered from PTSD for decades. And he spent 6 months in a mental hospital, in a military mental hospital, getting
Mm,
electroshock therapy. And my grandmother was pregnant at the time,
mm,
and she would go to the hospital every week, like just once a week, to see
yeah.
him. And she didn't know if her husband was ever going to come back, and
Mm,
she didn't know if he was not going to
yeah.
have his, so
Yeah.
she definitely had to be like his pillar in a way,
Hmm.
like he was the one who got the medals for honor
Yeah.
and valor, but really she was the one who kept the family together and prevented everyone from like losing their mind in a way.
The
So
civilian
I did
cost
find
of
that
war
really,
is
yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah.
I was looking up, I wrote about this film when I first watched it, and one of
Mm,
it I guess I feel fonder of it now than I did initially, which is interesting. But this is a so again, I'm going on subtitles here, but there's a scene when he comes back and won't tell Sadhna what is going on. Like, where does he go? She's not told her this family thinks I'm their son that we think is
mm-hmm.
dead. And she says, I waited for you the entire year, but not as much as I waited for you last night. I know you're
Yeah.
tired and worried, but this silence is not the solution. And I feel like I've had several instances in my life where someone I was close to would not talk to me about a thing. And that is so, um,
It's
I
like
don't know,
a
like
mental torture.
it just like pulls foundations out from under me and makes me crumble. So I
Yeah.
really related to her in that.
Yeah.
Even though, a lot of the times it has nothing to do with you, right? It's this person, it's something totally unrelated, but it does impact you because of how they're handling it.
Mhm.
And it's not that they necessarily owe you all the information, but yeah, I just find that just destroying. It's such a
It's kind
destructive
of
force.
It's kind of why psychologists today say that like ghosting is one of the worst things you can do
Right.
in friendships
Right.
or relationships, right? Like
Right.
just tell the person I'm not into you or I
Yeah.
don't want to be friends anymore or draw your boundaries, but don't just like
Hmm.
go silent because
Right.
that drives people crazy. And then they
Yeah.
start doubting themselves and it's just kind of
Yeah.
cruel.
Yeah.
Um, but what was I saying? I lost my train of thought. Um, I forgot what I was going to say. I was going to say something about the side. Oh, I was going to say Dev Anand's character in this movie is a terrible communicator, Beth.
He is.
Um, During his relationship with Sadhna, he's a terrible communicator. Like in that scene where he goes to her father's house to ask for her hand in marriage, and then the dad delivers this massive capitalistic monologue and how you're poor and you earn the money you earn in like 6 months or like a year is how much my daughter spends on her birthday party. And of course, my mind was like, can I come to Sadhna's birthday party, please? I want to attend her birthday party. Um, and there's all that, and he's just sitting there. Dave is literally just sitting on the sofa, like completely blank face, and I'm like, are you offended? Is your pride hurt? Are you angry? Could you show us some emotion maybe? And then he just like walks out. The man's that character is just absolutely hideous at communicating. And then he decides he's going to join the army because he sees a poster, and then he just informs his mom like, oh, like there's no concept of discussion, there's no concept of conversation. It's just kind of like, I got this thought and I'm going to do this thing. And it's
And
like,
I'm
bro.
and I'm gonna do it in World War II.
Yeah.
It's not like peacetime and I'm just gonna go enlist for a couple of years so I can get my college degree paid for, like or whatever.
Right.
This is this is hardcore. In Here's another subtitle question. In the What I saw, the dad's long speech about the reality, sort of the financial realities, ends with him saying, "Go ahead and marry her."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't see that coming. And then
I didn't either.
Dev acts as though he was not told he could marry the daughter, kind of, because he just like kind of wanders out and goes and joins it. So maybe there's
Which
something
is
I'm
again
missing there.
inexplicable. No, again, it's just his choices are inexplicable
Yeah.
because while that monologue was happening about like these are the realities of life, you basically live in a hovel, I live in a palace, my
Yeah.
daughter is completely unsuited for life, I don't know how you're going to support her, and sure, I'm a rich man and I don't have any other children, so I suppose you would just inherit my wealth and I guess that's fine. But also, he's trying to talk about the realities of life. Meanwhile, Dave is just getting butthurt. And at the end, it's almost like it's a stream of consciousness monologue. And then at the end of it, the dad just realizes that at the end of the day, his daughter's happiness is what's important. And he
Mhm.
doesn't want to stand in her way and say, don't marry this man. And so
Yeah.
he's kind of like, you know what? Do what you want. If you want to marry her, I won't stand in your way. You can marry her.
Yeah.
I would have married her. But Dave is Dave. So Dave just storms out because I think Dave just expects the dad to, which is so egotistical. He just expects her dad to be like, okay, I know you have no prospects. I know you don't have much education. I know you don't have much money, but here is the thing. You can totally marry my daughter and then inherit my property and my wealth and all the things. No dad is going to do that though. You kind of have to fight for your lady love in that situation, or at least like present a case as to why that dad should accept you. But of course, they can't be bothered to do that. So it's just kind of like, I'm team dad over here.
And he's come to this meeting from a job interview, which
Which he
again,
abandons.
which he abandons before finishing. So it's interesting that I mean, yes, could you have not called and just said, I'm going to be late because
No,
the
because
job
Dave
interview
doesn't
is going
communicate,
long?
Beth.
Yeah, true enough.
And there's a scene, I don't know if you caught it because of the subtitles, but when Sadhna and her dad are having that conversation, and the dad says, I don't like people who are unpunctual. Why is this person late? And then I think Sadhna says, well, he has a job interview. So it's possible that that's the reason he's late. But when he
Yeah.
realizes he's late, he might just cut that interview short and come. And the dad says, I actually would not. He says, I don't respect people who are latecomers. Late Latif is what he says.
Yeah.
But I respect people, disrespect people even more when they just abandon their job interview or their job. Like that's even worse in my books. And he
Yeah.
says, I wouldn't respect him if he abandoned his job interview and came. And that's exactly what Dave does.
Yeah. Oh boy.
So I'm curious, when you asked Twitter what their favorite Dev Anand black and white movies were, and you said Hum Dono did not feature in that list, which ones
You
did
pulled that
feature?
up. So Tere Gar Ke Samne, which we have discussed
Oh
on
yeah,
this podcast.
in the Nutan
Um,
episode.
uh-huh. Yeah. And let's see. CID, Kala Bazaar,
Mm-mm.
Kalapani, and Teen Devian.
Teen Devia. Mm.
Devian. I have not seen that, and I would like to. And I have not seen. I don't think I've seen Kala Bazaar or Kalapani, so that would be good. Somebody
So it's
did.
all the noir kind of like seedy
Yeah,
underbelly
yeah.
things that people are liking.
Someone said jab kisi se pyar hota hai.
I don't know this movie.
Um, I don't either. Paying Guest and Slova Sal both came up a couple times, and I haven't seen either of those either.
Mm-mm.
One person did say Hum Dono. They
Okay.
said I can't choose, so Hum Dono or Kalapani.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So mostly the more noiry
Yeah.
sort of ones. But I would like to watch the rest of these. And since so many of them are Navketan films, like they're gonna look good. The music probably will be lovely. He's good in
Yeah.
songs, I think. And
Hmm.
obviously the women in these are also amazing.
Yeah.
So
They're amazing.
I would
Yeah.
watch them for him. But which is how he entered this podcast in the first place, as he was around opposite these women that we wanted to talk about. So
Yeah.
even in a dual role film for him, we're still more impressed with the women than we are with him.
Yeah. What did you think of Nau Do Gyarah?
Loved it.
I loved
I
it
thought
too.
it was so cute. I like it more than Chori Chori. I'm just gonna say, because it's a very similar, you
So
know,
similar.
people on the run kind of
Runaway.
thing. Comes
Yeah.
from, I think, a year later. Um, I really loved this film. I wish I had seen it earlier, although I'm glad to have seen it at all. Like just charming as can be. He and
Mhm.
Kalpana Kartik have such cute chemistry together. I mean, file them under real life couples who do translate on screen. I would
Yeah.
say she in particular, I thought was just
I loved her,
I wish
and I
she
know
had done more
nothing about
films. No,
her.
me neither. I have
Yeah,
seen her
this
in
was
one
her
one
last
other of
one.
his, but she's only done what, like six movies or something. And
Yeah.
she was another beauty queen who got plucked to do a film role. But that was a great spot by it's his brother who spots her, I think, right?
Yeah.
To bring her
Hmm.
into films. I thought she was wonderful. I
So
loved
she
everything.
is, I think, the cousin of Vijay Anand's wife.
Yes,
Um,
something like that.
but I had no idea that Kalpana Karthik was so fun because I've
So
never really seen any film of hers before this. I,
yeah,
I probably have seen her in songs with Dave just because the songs are so famous. But
yeah.
I went into this movie completely blind. We had decided to do two Dave films that had the title though, like the word though in the title. So I was like, okay, now the Gyarah and Hum Dono. And she blew me away
Yeah,
literally from she has such amazing screen presence. She
yeah.
was petulant, she was feisty, she was funny, she was witty. The way she rolls her eyes at him, and like you can tell that she's like, cut your bullshit, man. Like I loved that about her.
And
But
she
at the same
wasn't
time, she's so
over.
cute.
Yeah, she wasn't overdone in any of those things the way some, like petulant played by actually not a child is always like, could we
Yeah.
not? But like it really made sense here. Like it was all like calibrated so well. I thought
Yeah.
she was really good.
I really liked her, and their chemistry was sparkling. So I
So
saw
cute.
Hum Dono first, and I thought his chemistry with Sadhna was great, and I thought his chemistry with Nanda was great. And then I saw Nau Do Gyarah, and I was like, wow, okay, like the sparks are just flying. He literally has a big shit eating grin on his face every time he looks at her, and I get it because you can't look away from her.
Yeah.
She's so adorable and she's so
Yeah.
darling in all the songs. And I love her with her little turban where she's pretending to be a little Sardar boy. And the comedy was really cute in it. I really liked
So
it.
cute. So cute.
Yeah. And I was surprised. Now, there were some things about the movie I didn't like. I felt like the plot, like when they go to Mahaveshwar, to Lalita Pawar's home, and then there's the whole shenanigans, and they're trying to get to the root of the second will and all of that. I felt like a lot of that could have been edited because this movie dragged at times.
Oh.
So anytime Dave and Kalpana were on screen together, I was all in, right? But
Mhm.
anytime he's asking the servants about what happened, and he's trying to get to the bottom of the mystery and stuff. He was just kind of losing me a little bit.
Mm,
But on the whole, I really liked Dev in this movie than
yeah.
I did in Hum Dono, and I adored her. And I squealed when Lalita Pawar came on scene, and she's sitting just like the stentorian matriarch, and she has this like leopard shawl on her shoulders, and I took a picture and I was like, yes. Because she's just going to cut him down with her eyes and her speech. um but yeah, it was really really fun, and I don't know why I had never seen this movie. I don't feel like people talk about Nau Do Gyarah very much.
No, I don't either. And they, especially because it is so similar to, in ways, to Chori Chori, I feel like maybe that's why, like, it was viewed as a kind of, they pumped that out because Chori Chori was so beloved or something. I
Right.
actually don't know if Chori Chori was a big hit when it came out. If it was, maybe that's, but it
I
is
think Chori
different,
Chori
right?
was
Because
a
there's,
giant hit.
yeah, because there's a mystery here as well, like
Yeah.
trying to figure out a will. As someone who reads and watches a lot of Agatha Christie, books and adaptations and all, like I'm for some will shenanigans. That's fine, but it
Yeah.
wasn't my favorite part by any means. I did also like that they're so in the, the basic plot is that Dev discovers that an uncle was going to leave him some cash, but that was in a second will, which now no one can find, and blah blah blah. And Lolita is the deceased uncle's sister, right?
I
Not
couldn't
his
tell exactly
widow.
the relation, but she's basically making sure that
And
she and her son gets
her
everything.
son is, yeah, to get the money. And that son is played by an actor who I don't remember having seen before, but he looked so much like Rajkumar Rao to me. It was very distracting to me. I was like, who is this? His name is Krishan Dhawan. He's been in a lot of things, but I just was like, whoa, somehow. And actually I had to go and look up his family. But that, that son, there's a letter from the uncle that says, I'm not giving it to him because I don't approve of how he's living or whatever. So I didn't know what to expect with him, but I liked that he was kind of I mean, he tries to scheme, but he's not competent at it. Like he's
Yeah.
bumbling and kind of a pampered loser who's always walking around with
Yeah.
a rifle because he shoots at things. And Jivan appears to be the real villain because of course he does, and that was
Yeah.
fine by me. That was a good use of Jivan. But um yeah, I really enjoyed this film very much.
I did too.
Very
And the
much.
songs in this movie are really good as well.
Cute. So
I
cute.
really like Devanandan's songs. I actually have a theory that I think the reason that Devanand was so popular, because I have never gotten his appeal as much. I think it's because he's so good in all the songs.
Mm.
Like he knows how to emote. He's actually terrible at dancing, so they never make him dance
Oh
because
no.
he's so like gangly and weird. Like this is not a dancer. But he knows what to do with his face and his close-ups and his smile. Like he knows how to emote for that camera, and he's very
Mm.
charming and savvy and stuff like that. And so I think it's his songs that have kept him kind of like alive. And I have a feeling that that really was the reason he was such a heartthrob in his era, because Dilip Kumar, Raj Kapoor, and Devan was the trifecta, right? Like they were the three.
Yeah.
It was the equivalent of the Khans today. Like they
Yeah.
were the Khans of yore. And of those, Dilip Kumar was the actor, and then Raj Kapoor was kind of like the
Artiste.
genius who did all, yeah, and he did all the things like the studio and the producer and the director and the everything. And then Dave was kind of the heartthrob. So he was
Mm.
the one who was the weakest in terms of the acting, but he was kind of the brightest in terms of stardom in a way.
Mm.
So maybe he was the Salman Khan. I know. I am
Oh.
besmirching the name of our patron saint by equating him with Salman Khan. But, he was like, I think he was considered an acting lightweight. And
Mm.
except for Guide, I can't really remember watching a movie where I went, oh, Dave, such amazing acting. Having said that, I would any day prefer to watch a Raj Kapoor or Devanand movie over Dilip Kumar's movies, because Dilip Kumar's movies are just depressing.
Yeah, I've seen one that wasn't depressing, but yeah, it's certainly the ones I've seen have been more towards the.
Oh, which one? Ramasham?
Oh, there's that one, yeah. But then
Okay.
Kohinoor, where he is a prince, and
I
I
don't
believe
remember
it's
that.
Mina Kumari. Like he does, he has one of those scenes where like he's, oh gosh, is he a duplicate or it's when the actor is looking into a mirror and like reacting against the, and like that's really funny. Like he's all in, I don't
Okay.
know, it's cute. It's one of those, it's a swashbuckler basically.
Hmm.
It's cute. It's
Okay.
cute. As you can tell, I've not seen it in a long time, but I remember it
No,
being
I
very, very
suspect I
fun.
have never seen it because the combination of Dilip Kumar and Meena Kumari is more than I can handle.
Right. Even with crying as your hobby,
Yes, even with
too
crying is my
much.
hobby.
It's
Like I
too
can take
much.
one or the other, but both at the same time in a film, no. Um,
Also, this movie has Helen.
I know.
That was
It
fun
also
to
has
see.
Shashikala. She was great too.
Yeah, Shashikala is
Yeah,
really fun. I always enjoy her when she shows up.
I do too. There's something very twinkly-eyed about her that I
Yeah,
enjoy,
yeah.
where you always get the sense that she's above it all and she's in on the joke. Like that's the best way I can describe Shashikala. There's something very meta about her. But one
Yeah.
thing I enjoy about Navketan films in general, because in some ways you can't talk about Devanand without talking about
Right.
Navketan and Vijayanand. It's all
Yeah.
so like enmeshed. It's kind of like you can't talk about Raj Kapoor without RK Studios either. It's all
Yeah.
like combined.
Yeah.
And one thing I love about Navketan films is that there's always a cabaret, there's always a speakeasy, there's always a den where there's like gambling and shenanigans happening. There's often streetwalkers, and they're always very sassy. There's always card sharps, and there's always shades of gray,
Oh yeah. We love a
but
noir,
it's
right?
not moralistic,
Right.
which I
Right.
like.
Yeah.
So it's they're
Bombay.
always fun, even
Yeah.
if you don't necessarily like you don't watch an Avketan film and think, oh, that was a drag. So even if you it's not your favorite film of all time, it's still a fun movie to watch and it's still like enjoyable and it's still shot beautifully and stuff. So I like that. Um, I was not asking, but I was looking up on Quora to see what people liked about Devanand because I was like, I'm just not getting it. Like, I'm not getting why he was such a
Mm-hmm.
big superstar, and it's probably a generation issue. So, this is something fun that I read on. Okay, look at this hilarious comment on Devanand. Then what is the aura of Devanand? Yes, the most stylish in fashion sense, color coordination, unique style of dialogue delivery, most handsome, a smile to die for, and acting so so. Sometimes annoying, sometimes overacting, and in the later years, waste of money to watch his movies.
That is the aura.
And this is written by a person who is a self-avowed Devanand fan because the question in Quora was, why is Devanand the most brilliant actor in Indian cinema? And the response is literally acting so, sometimes annoying, sometimes overacting, and in the later years, waste of money to watch his movies. I was like, wow. And then here is another
Mm.
interesting quote that I would like to tell you because it made me giggle. And I will let you guess who started this rumor. So here's the quote.
Mm.
It was rumored that Devanand was banned from wearing black suits, as the young girls and the middle aged aunties would just swoon over and lose their mental peace after seeing Dave in a black suit.
That sounds extremely untrue, but the even the nonsense of it tells you something. So
But I love that it starts with it was rumored that Devanand. I was like, did Devanand start that rumor? Banned from
I
wearing black suits.
I cannot wait to read this autobiography. It's going to be a trip and more than a half.
I cannot wait either. I think I will begin the autobiography with a mug of tea and I think I will progress to like a martini at the end of it because I'm gonna need some alcohol when I get into the later years where Dave considers himself to be a hero at age 57 and 58.
Mhm.
And where his mom is supermodel Cindy Crawford. So
The heroes be heroing well into their late 50s. We are closing in on 59 for cons. So
oh my God, yes. Isn't Shah Rukh? Oh yeah, Shah Rukh is 59 actually. Yeah, true that. Um,
59 is different now than it was then, but still, but
yes,
still.
but still.
Do you have any other comments about this film? Because I have a question to ask once we're done with the film.
I don't think I have any, except I just want to see more of Kalpana Karthik because I thought she was
Yeah,
absolutely
I'd
delightful.
like to watch all of their films for sure. And
Hmm.
I will I will do so. And maybe,
Apparently, they got married during the lunch
yeah,
break of one of their film shows. I
yeah.
was like,
So
what? They
cute.
got
So
married during
cute.
the lunch break?
I hope that was very much what they both wanted to do, and it was a fun
Right.
moment for them. Here is my question. Before we get to ice cream, I have another question. Um, if Dev is our patron saint,
Hmm.
um, A, do we wish to sort of replace him with somebody else? But B, if we did, how would we go about exorcising Dev Anand? And obviously we'd have to wait till after we've read the book. And maybe the book is
Right.
what will set him free from our podcast,
Hmm.
or set us free from his influence. I don't know. Or is he just always going to be there? Because, like, we haven't talked about Dharmendra in ages,
Right. We haven't.
one of the other people who
Um,
haunts our episodes. So,
I'm gonna say that I like Devanand being our patron saint because like one of my friends, Nikki, she always, anytime one of his friends has like a moment of like imposter syndrome or we're
mm,
nervous or we're just like we feel like we've bitten on more than we can chew or anything, she always says, I want you to have the confidence of a middle-aged, mediocre white man. And I'm like, yes, you are right. I will
hmm
channel a mediocre
hmm
white man.
hmm
So this is what I love about Devanand, right? You may think that at 59, he should not, with his exaggerated mannerisms, be romancing young Zinat Aman in a movie. And I may think the same, but he do not think the same. Okay. You may think he has outstayed his welcome, but he does not think the same.
no.
So I enjoy the extravagant ego and self confidence and the perennial evergreen hero ness that he has brought upon himself. I wish to channel that same level of confidence in my own life. And I wish for this podcast to also be extravagantly confident as we have now entered our
Go on
second year in
for decades
the
past our time.
yes. So
Yeah, his
I don't wish to dislodge him.
okay.
And I think we do have his blessings because I remember when you mailed me his autobiography and I had no idea who'd sent it to me. And I kept it on my kitchen island and I had like a little bouquet of roses next to it. And a few hours later I came and there were red petals from my rose strewn upon his face. That
He
was
would
a
like that.
sign. That was a sign. That was an omen. So I'm not gonna mess with that. I think he
Fair,
should remain our patron saint. We can
fair.
have little like tiny little
Others.
saints,
Yeah, you can
other
have more than one.
saints. Yeah, like Sanjeev Kumar could be your personal favorite, the actor that we know you love so much. Manoj Kumar could be mine.
Oh.
I've already made you give me disgusting face twice today. In one recording, I managed to utter the word Salman Khan. I've uttered Manoj Kumar. How are you still friends with me, Beth? I
I was
don't
just, when you
understand.
said they're like the cons today, and then you started trying to map them, I was like, this falls apart very quickly. I don't wish to try to map those three to those three at all.
No?
It's hard to do. And if someone does, I think it should be our friends at Khandan. So we'll
Yeah.
bop that question to more qualified peers.
Amrita will
Uh,
bop it right back because Amrita will be like, absolutely not.
I was texting with her about this because in researching Hum Dono a little bit, I found out
Hmm.
that there is a Bengali version and
Oh,
it does
okay.
star Uttam Kumar. And I was like, I
Hmm.
bet you guess what?
Oh,
There's a
that
Bengali
could be
one. Like, of course.
cute.
Yeah. So I have not yet found it with subtitles, and I cannot stumble. I mean, I will watch Bengali without subtitles, but I
Yeah, yeah.
because I know way less of it. So um, but I was telling her that, when at some point you asked me which of the three male leads from Golden Age Hindi cinema do I prefer, and I told you it was Dave, but then also I was like, it's a secret fourth answer, and it's Uttam Kumar because I'm just left to the Hindi industry entirely because I do like him any more than any of these three
Right.
guys by a long shot.
Right.
Yeah, the secret answer is Bengali movies.
All right.
But yeah, maybe I will watch if I can find the Bengali one with subs, I would try it
Yeah.
because
But I
I
feel
think he'd be
like
good at that.
if the plot is true to the one in Hum Dono, then I feel like
Yeah.
even without subtitles, it would be interesting because I mean, you know the story.
Yeah. And from what I read, that one is based on a book that this one
Okay.
apparently does not acknowledge being drawn from, but is very similar or something. So I don't
Okay.
know I don't know that the
Mm.
Bengali one is a remake of Hum Dono, but it's drawing from a source that is similar, I think.
Okay.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I will try it if I can.
Okay. Ice cream time. What is
Ugh.
our patron saint's ice cream flavor?
So, what is a flavor that is extremely self-confident and is always there no matter whether anyone gets a scoop of it or not?
Oh
Like
gosh.
tutti frutti or something?
Mm, I suppose I have an answer.
Yes, tell me.
My answer is black sesame and ginger ice cream because it's a so black sesame is a very confident flavor. I don't know if you've ever had black sesame ice cream.
No, I
It's like it's a
haven't.
Korean thing. And so when I
Oh,
lived in New York City, I used to go to Koreatown all the time. And there's a cafe over there called Grace that I love. It's a Korean cafe. All their drinks, like coffees and teas and ice creams and all their desserts, their waffles, everything is like Korean. And there's actually a Korean word for it, but which I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce because I will butcher it. And the first time you see black sesame ice cream, it looks horrible because it is literally dark gray. It looks like old snow.
I'm
Like, snow
seeing
in
it.
March in
Yeah,
Chicago that is so
yeah.
ugly because it's like all
Gross.
black. It looks like that. And you see people digging into black sesame ice cream, and you're like, are you mad? That looks
Because
hideous.
pretty famously, food should not be gray.
Yes.
That's usually a
And
sign of
yet,
off.
yeah, but that is what people get at Grace Cafe. And one time I was like, okay, and their ice cream flavors over there were like, black sesame, there was mochi, there was matcha, which I would always get, and then there was
Mm.
vanilla. So I was like, okay, today I'm going to get the black sesame ice cream because everyone else is getting it, and I have FOMO, and I want to understand why these people are eating this terrible looking thing instead of just getting matcha. So I got the black sesame ice cream, and it was very interesting. Now, I would not say that I would order it again, but it tasted a lot better than it looked. But anyway, what I'm trying to get at is that it's a very self confident flavor. And it is a very
Mm.
popular flavor in Koreatown. And once you eat it, you can't mistake it for anything else. It doesn't taste like anything else you've eaten. So I would say black sesame ice cream with a little bit of the sharpness and tartness of ginger would be Devanand.
So I just Googled quickly and I found that I think these statistics are for the United States. So bear with
Okay.
me. The most popular ice cream flavor by decade. And the
Mm-hmm.
decade that Dev Anand was born in, the 1920s, the most popular flavor was Rocky Road. And
Oh, I
that
love
is a
Rocky
flavor
Road.
that remains popular. That is an evergreen flavor for
It is an
sure,
evergreen
at least in the
flavor.
US. I don't know about India, but um, I I could definitely apply Rocky Road to Dave. Like there's a few little like there's some nuts in there, but there's
Yeah.
also like Marshmallow
The
Ripple for the romantic
marshmallow.
songs and like
Yeah.
chocolate for Chocolate Hero. And then you've got the nuts for like cause like the noir, the like crunchy,
Yeah.
disruptive kind of thing, like nuts. So I'm okay with him being Rocky Road. But
Okay.
your
Yeah.
answer is much more interesting. I like your
I
answer
was
too.
mostly just craving Korean food,
I
honestly.
mean,
And so I was
we
like,
can give him two flavors.
okay. I mean, he is Devanand. If there's any person we're going to
Dough,
give two flavors,
dough flavors,
I
dough
love
years,
it.
dough
Our
flavors.
podcast has entered the terrible twos. We can now have tantrums.
Oh
We can be
boy.
horrible people. This is
Well, you
amazing.
already started it with the Sanjeev Kumar patron saint nonsense. So I'll
I
throw a
also
tantrum.
mentioned Manoj Kumar. Now you're
Yeah,
going to like ghost me.
I'm not. I don't believe in ghosting. I think it's mean and horrible.
Okay. You'll just yell at me then. It's fine. Um, okay. Did you have any closing? I feel like you do have a
I
closing
do
thought.
have one thing I wanted to say because I don't think I've plugged it on this podcast before. But if you, like me, are someone who is Nev Ketan curious and you want to know more about their films and the kind of the world of Bombay Noir, uh,
Mhm.
good friend Uday Bhatia, who's a critic for Mint, wrote a book about Satya.
I
And
love Satya.
in that book, he does talk extensively about kind of the context of the gangster movie in
Mm.
Bombay cinema.
Mhm.
And so when I read that book, I'm like underlining all these movies I want to watch. So that is how I got to Bazi, for example, I think, and some of those. So um, I had actually never seen Satya. I find this was my impetus to watch it, so I watched it and then I read the book. Please get this book. It's on Kindle and everything. It's so good. It's so well researched. Uday is so thoughtful. This stuff is really interesting, and I don't think of myself as a gangster movie person, but I
Mhm.
was fascinated by everything in this book, partly because of all the careers that were like confluencing or whatever the
Hmm.
word is during Satya, and then also how it fits in this longer history of the noir and things like that. So recommend this book, even though it is not about Dev Anand.
Yeah.
But he's
Not
there too
everything
because
is about
he's
Devanand.
everybody's patron saint. Not everything is about Dev Anand. You're going to get the internet to crash and everything when you say something
I
like that.
know. I shouldn't
Sorry,
have said
Dave.
that. I should see what's happening to my copy of the Devanand book. Maybe other things are
Like
happening right
caught
now
on
that I'm
fire. Ugh, ugh.
maybe my dog ate it or
Ooh.
something. We'll see. Okay. I think that concludes our episode for today. We've talked enough about Devanand. We've gotten it all out of our system. Um, and I think that's it. And then we'll see you guys next week. Thank you for tolerating us for 2 years. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're everywhere. And we would love for you to keep watching our episodes or listening to our episodes and commenting. We really do enjoy reading your comments, as long
Mhm.
as they're not mean, because if you are mean and you're a troll, then I'm going to block you. But it's fun. And hopefully you will stick with us during our Terrible Twos phase as well. And tell us your opinions on our patron saint, on Devanand himself. Thank you for watching. Bye.